Good morning. Hope everyone's doing okay today. So I just wanted to show you where we're at with our 67 Beetle that we were stripping down.
We've got everything pretty much taken apart. There's the frame. Everything's stripped off of it. The body is stripped down and we moved it back outside there temporarily with the cover, but that's all stripped down.
So our first plan of attack is to now get the frame all done and ready to go. These are the original pans. They both were dented up. This one I pretty much saved, but this one here is, well, it does have a rust hole from the battery and it's pretty dented up, so probably have to do at least a quarter of it, if not the whole thing. We'll see. But we have our tranny here. That's the motor that was in it. It's actually going to be, we have an HO case that he wants to put in here. We've got our beam up here, and over there Chris is working on sandblasting all of our frame parts. She's got a lot of those already done. So my job today is going to be to come in here in the paint booth and start wiping some of this stuff down and start getting some primer and paint on it. So that's kind of where we're at. I'll bring you back when we get some more. Okay? Today we're going to continue working on our 67 Beetle here. Last little update I gave you, I showed you how we had gotten everything tore apart and Chris had been sandblasting stuff and I've been painting stuff. We've got a whole pile of stuff over there that's painted. I'll show you that when we start putting it together. But today what I want to do is get our frame cleaned up here. The car is a very nice solid car, but unfortunately that pan over there I can save. It had some dents in it, but I was able to pound those out. This pan on this side, the passenger side, is smashed up pretty good. There's just no way I'm going to be able to pop that out. Plus there's a rust hole by the battery there. And I could go through and probably just replace this little section. You can buy those quarter pieces, but by the time on a restoration like this, we're gonna want that seam that's welded in here to be seamless, that you can't tell that was done. So, there's gonna be a lot of labor involved in that. So it's gonna be quicker and cheaper just to replace the whole pan half. So that's the road I'm going to go. And the first step here is I'll show you how I remove that pan. And then we're going to take this frame outside and we're going to laser clean it to get all the paint and any other rust off of it. When you do replace your pans, there's different versions. Obviously, you can get the cheaper ones that are thinner metal. Thicker ones fit nice. I usually go with the Wolfsburg West ones. Those they make themselves. They fit very well. And they come with the correct jack support thing. And the reason I say that is the other pans, like CIP sells some really nice thick pans and they do fit well too. But the way this jack support is mounted on, there's a big plate underneath here, which was not original to the car, and I just don't like that. And also, those other pans, they come with this back support here already welded on the pan. I usually do not replace this piece of the pan unless it's rotted really bad. I'll take and I'll do just this part of it, because then I'm not trying to mess around with where it's welded onto here, welded here. I know these bolt holes are going to stay in the right place.
The Wolfsburg West ones, these two pieces are not welded together. You'll get them separate. So I like that. Now you can get the CIP ones or from some other manufacturer, and you can drill out the spot welds and take that off, but it's just a better, to me it's better. The seat tracks fit very well. You do have to weld this on, but you get to weld it on where you want it. And that's just my take. You know, I've put all different kinds in there. If I have to replace this back support, yeah, those other ones are just as good. Or if I'm not caring about being factory correct, then that's okay for the jack support, but I usually just go with the Wolfsburg West ones. So I've got a Wolfsburg West pan coming. They do not come with this stud or this battery hold down piece here. That you have to buy separate, or you can reuse your old ones. So I've got that coming. It's not here yet, but first step is let's cut this old one out, and then we're going to drag this pan outside and we're going to laser clean it. Once it's laser cleaned, I can get some epoxy primer on it, and then as soon as our pan is here, we can show you how to weld the new pan in, and then we can paint it black and start assembling again. So it's coming along pretty good. So the way I like to do it when I'm doing them is I'll take the Sawzall and I'll cut the big chunk of this out. I think if you look at a lot of my metalwork videos, I do that. I take the big piece out and I leave the smaller stuff to take out later where the spot welds are. So this tunnel has a 90-degree, and it's got a flange, and it's probably about a 1/2 inch thick, 3/8. It comes out that this pan sits on. So when we cut this old pan out, we want to make sure we stay probably a good 3/4 of an inch away from there, so we don't cut our lip off of the tunnel. So basically we're going to go around and we're going to cut this off. I'm going to cut around this area so I don't ruin my tube here, because I'll be able to take this heater cable tube off and clean that up, and we'll be able to weld that back on our new pan. This piece also has that lip on it that the pan will sit on, so we'll come around there. And to get my Sawzall started, I'll take the air hammer here and I'll cut a little groove to get the Sawzall blade in there. And then we'll end up using this to get the rest of our flange off to break the spot welds. So, with that said, let's get ourselves a spot to get the blade in. Like such. We can put our Sawzall in. Okay, so there's the bulk of our pan off. And I said this, I had the cable out of here, so I'll be able to take and get this tube off of here. If your tube is rotted, there's probably a good chance that it is rotten. You can buy that round tubing like that and replace it. So, but now what we need to do is we need to get the rest of this pan off of here. From the factory, it's spot welded.
You could drill all your spot welds out, but I just use the air hammer, air chisel here, and I get this underneath here. And that's all we're going to do. Now you want to be careful because there's 3 layers here. This tunnel has a lip coming out, and then we got the bottom plate of our tunnel. So there's another seam right here. So make sure when you use your air hammer, you're not getting this seam right here. You're getting just your floor pan one. So we're just going to keep going along here, breaking these welds. Okay. So that's how that comes off of there. These corners, this corner and this corner, it gets kind of thick in there. There's a few more layers of metal, so be careful. So what we'll do now is I'll be able to come along with the grinder and grind this nice and smooth. There's that one, right there's the one spot that I kind of chewed into there. This is thinner. It may have got warped a little bit, but we'll take a dolly and hammer. We'll be able to straighten that out. This is where this overlaps a little bit, that little bump up there. But that's how they're held on. This one came off a little bit harder because it's not really rusted. When you got a really rusted pan, them spot welds will pop right off real easy. But then you got to hope that you don't have rot all through here into your tunnel. So let me get this outside and get the laser cleaner set up, and we'll start zapping. All right? We'll talk to you in a little bit. So I'm outside here, set up to clean. It's a little bit warmer day today, actually pretty warm for February. So I rather do this outside because it makes a lot of smoke and whatnot. Don't need the smoke up inside. But I'm also going to do my front beam while I'm out here. So that's why that's sitting there. But essentially, this is just going to shoot a laser beam and clean this up for us. I will have to do some work with the wire brush here and there to get some of the ash that's loose and some of the scale, but it's another option beyond sandblasting. So wear a respirator, and I've got my glasses. So essentially, this side, if all goes well, got our frame cleaned up. Everything came out pretty well. There's the actual laser cleaner machine itself. So what we're going to do now is start fitting our floor pan in. It came. So this is what you get when you order one from Wolfsburg West. You get the main pan itself, you get your jack support, and you get this back piece here. Like I said, if I don't have to, I don't take this back piece out. It's less work because this is welded on with some pretty thick, and you're trying to get this welded on and cut off, and these usually don't fit up there real nice, curvature. So whenever possible, just leave that on. And that's kind of what's nice about the Wolfsburg West pans, is they don't have these attached. So you can decide if you want it or not. The other aftermarket ones, they come attached. The other thing I like about the Wolfsburg West is the jack support. Let's see here if you can see me. So the jack support goes on like this and welds on there. A lot of the pans, like the heavy duty ones you get from CIP, they have like another big piece of metal that's back on here, and then the jack support mounts into that. And I guess it works, but from an originality standpoint, it's not correct. So I'd rather use these. Plus, if you're doing a convertible, you've got to hack this off, whereas we don't have to put it on. In fact, if you order from Wolfsburg West, they do sell, say, convertible version. They just don't send you this jack support. So that's the difference. So it fits really well. You can see I cleaned up all my surface here. I ground down any leftover metal and spot welds from the old pan. But essentially, we're gonna set this in here on the lip. And you can see it fits. I mean, you can't complain at all. Everything is the way it should be. So, what I'll end up doing next is I've already marked them off. I'm going to go through and drill holes, inch and a quarter apart roughly. And that's what we're going to use to plug weld our pan back to the frame, the tunnel. So we're going to drill those out. On the floor pans, I usually do around a 1/4 inch drill. Get a bigger hole so I can, if the hole is too small, when you start to plug weld, before it gets hot enough to melt this thick metal on the tunnel, your hole a lot of times fills up and you don't get any penetration and it don't hold. So with this jack support, that I'll weld on then too. What I'll do is I've already marked, I measured from the other side, and from this back edge here to the center is about 5 3/4. So I marked my center, so that's where that's going to go. I'll put a weld here, and then I'll drill some holes here, and then I'll plug weld this to the pan. I've also went through and I removed my battery piece and my tube for my heater cable off the old pan. So that's going to go on here like this. And I've took the liberty to put some marks here so I know I can grind and clean that paint up. Then we also need a bolt to come through. So I've got a bolt here. I'm going to drill a hole and I'll put this in from the bottom. That's the other part of our battery hold down. Once the battery's sitting in there, the other piece comes down and clamps on there, and we put a bolt in and it clamps the battery in. So we want to put that in there also. So that's what I'm going to start doing. Let me get all my holes drilled and everything ready to cleaned up and weld on. And I'll come back and let you watch me weld it in. All right? All right, I've got our holes drilled on our pan for our plug welds. Set the pan back in place. Clamped it up, and now we'll do some welding. I already did put my bolt in. I welded that from the back side. So basically, I'm going to go through on every one of the holes here, and I'm going to plug weld them. And you want to make sure you get your metal as tight as you can when you're doing this. So I've taken and I've tapped, and a lot of times too you're able to take a screwdriver. These are pretty much tight, but along here I'll have to do that in spots. I'll have to push down to get it started. I'll get a few in there. So essentially, pretty straightforward to, I'll start right here where I've got my clamp. Let's get our cord. Situated. Let's do this one first. That's what we want to do. All right, got all of our plug welds in. Pretty much a little bit tougher to get in there by the seat rail, but that's what we're looking to do. So now we can, well, where did I put it? Our, here it is, our tube. We can weld this in. Okay, and we got our jack support. there we go. There we go. There's that. There's that. So now what I'll do is I'll go through and flatten my plugs out a little bit so they're not as noticeable. And then I'll go through and I'll end up scuffing this up, and we can get some epoxy primer on our frame. But essentially I'm just going to go through here and that's how we're going to do those. To get in back here behind our seat rail, got this little belt sander, works good. And it'll just go back in here. Basically we'll be grinding them off inside there. But that's the extent of putting the pan in. Obviously much easier when the body is off, but the same principle goes for when the body is on. It's just you've got to crawl inside the car. So it's not too intimidating, hopefully, for you. But let me grind the rest of our welds off and scuff this up, and then I'll get some epoxy primer on the top here. That dries, we can flip it over and epoxy primer the bottom side. And once that epoxy dries on both sides, I'll come through and I'll put seam sealer in our seams. I like to put the epoxy first, so at least some of you get epoxy in there. I don't like to put seam sealer over bare metal, so. But that's that process. On to the next part. All right. Well, everything is getting painted up. I'm finishing up the top part here. I will then be letting this dry, and then we'll start on the assembly of our frame. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Give me some comments down below. I'd love to hear them. Please like, please subscribe, and check back soon to see the assembly process of the frame. Thanks, everybody. Take care.